Joining me now is one of our national security experts, David Pine. Oh my, what was going on today in China? You had Xi Jinping, you had Putin, you had the leader of North Korea, you had a few others there. I think all of them are nuclear-armed nations. There was a hot mic, apparently. I'm not a translator. I have no idea whether this is true or not, but apparently it is, because a lot of media outlets are putting it out there that Putin and Xi Jinping were talking about living to 150 with good organs. That's interesting, because we have told you guys for years, well, not to say years, but we've been saying to you now for a couple of years that we think one reason why the leaders in China are living so long is because they are harvesting organs of prisoners. We've been talking about that. And then wouldn't you know, now we have a report that's what these two guys are talking about. Here we go. Here's the exchange. These days, 70 years old, you're still a child. Putin speak. Don't know what he said. With the development of biotechnology, human organs can be transplanted and people can live longer and younger and even achieve immortality. Predictions are this century there's a chance of also living to 150. And they broke down the whole conversation. There it is. Xi Jinping. In the past, people rarely lived to 70, but today at 70, you're still a child, Vladimir. With advances in biotechnology, human organs can be continually replaced, allowing people to live longer and longer and even achieve immortality. Xi Jinping. According to projections, there's a chance to live up to 150 years in this century. Well, they also showed up a lot of military might. I even have a report here about a possible, I don't know, I have to pull it up. I think it was the military website I visit, but apparently there was an intercontinental ballistic missile put on parade. We'll take a look at that here. Joining me to discuss all this is David Pine. Hello, David.
Hey, Brandon, great to be with you.
How you doing?
Good. Happy late VJ Day.
Yeah, same to you. Explain to our audience for those who maybe don't remember, because there's lots of young people in this audience.
Yeah, so September 2nd, 1945 was Victory over Japan Day. It's when the Japanese surrendered to MacArthur on the battleship USS Missouri. My own grandfather was parked right alongside the Missouri on the USS West Virginia, a battleship, and saw it live.
Wow, fascinating. All right, what do you make of what's going down in China today?
Well, I think, this is just a continuation of what we've been seeing over the past few years. It's really been accentuated by, Biden and I guess now Trump's war against Russia and Ukraine, with Russia and China being pushed together by the U.S., India now being pushed into China's arms by President Trump's 50% sanctions, which have dropped India's U.S.-India ties to an all-time low. Our ties with Russia at an all-time low. One of the big lessons of history is the best way to achieve security is not so much having close ties with your allies, it's having good relations with your enemies. Because if you have good relations with your enemies and you're resolving potential conflicts diplomatically instead of militarily, then the chances of going to nuclear war with them are near zero. And unfortunately, we haven't seen that happening. But this was, today's military parade was the largest in Chinese history. It was exclusively with Chinese troops, but as you mentioned, it showcased a lot of new Chinese weapons, most of which have already been seen in past parades, but at least one of which hasn't been, and that's the ICBM you referenced, which is the DF-61. The DF-61 ICBM has not been referenced in any unclassified sources up to today. There's some articles about it speculating as to its capabilities, but it's clearly the most advanced ICBM in China's arsenal. I would assess that the DF-61 is being used to populate many of the 360 new ICBM silos that they've created in 3 different ICBM fields that are located primarily in northwestern and western China. So this, we struggle to we haven't even built a single nuclear warhead from scratch since 1992. China's built thousands. Russia's built tens of thousands. China and Russia combined with North Korea, I think they've each built at least 5 new ICBMs, ICBM models, multiple nuclear anti-ship missiles, hypersonic missiles, hypersonic glide vehicles. So much, and we're struggling just to get to modernize our arsenal, which still remains populated primarily with Minuteman III ICBMs that were first deployed when I was a year old. You and I were a year old, so
Wow.
this is we have a rapidly decaying and obsolescent nuclear arsenal. Russia, China, and even North Korea have much more advanced missiles than we have. They have mobile missiles that we haven't had for many, many years. Our last mobile missile was the Pershing, which Reagan got rid of in the 1980s. So this was denounced as the axis of upheaval, but this is really that just kind of denigrates what is really a very powerful alliance, the most existential threat the U.S. has ever faced in its history.
The alliance that you just saw, the alliance that was on display at this parade.
Yeah, I've seen some foolish neocon pundits say, well, China's not a threat because they don't have any allies. Well, there were 20 leaders, 20 leaders in attendance at this military parade, and nearly, most of them are formal Chinese military allies by being members or associate members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And some of the notable attendees included the leader of two NATO states, Turkey being the most obvious, and also Slovakia. Erdogan, I think, was there. Fico was there from Slovakia. There was also the president of Serbia was there. Former Prime Minister of Japan, a leader, the parliamentary speaker of South Korea. So it wasn't just East Bloc countries that were involved. There were some West Bloc countries in attendance as well. And I think it's because they recognize that the balance of power has shifted to the Russian and Chinese side. As an American, I hate to say it, but based on my projections, the U.S. is a declining power, and Russia and China are ascendant powers. So we need to reverse that decline. The best way to do it, I think, is to end the war in Ukraine, establish a strategic partnership that's mutually beneficial with Russia, break them away from their full military alliance with China. And that's an idea that Trump has been supporting for a year. But unfortunately, he's been pursuing policies that have had the opposite effect.
So there is a New World Order shaping up, but it looks like it's going to have China and a lot of their allies being the ones that lead this New World Order.
Yeah, we have two opposing New World Orders. Obviously, the one that President George H.W. Bush proclaimed when he invaded Iraq the first time in 1991. And then the one that Russia and China and India have been trying to cobble together since 1997, when we pushed them together with Bill Clinton's foolish decision to expand NATO to Russia's borders in Eastern Europe. That's something we hadn't seen. Russia, of course, had borders with NATO in northern Norway as well as Turkey, but never in Eastern Europe. And that was essentially our successful attempt to upend the post-war international order, because the understanding that we established with the Soviets, with Gorbachev, that in exchange for collapsing the Soviet Union and allowing the reunification of Germany, we've maintained Eastern Europe as the former Warsaw Pact and former Soviet republics as kind of neutral buffer states, which is exactly what the war in Ukraine is being fought over. Is that Russia's trying to transform Ukraine back into a neutral Switzerland type state, and the U.S. is trying to make a Western bastion, which is a de facto NATO member that's armed to the teeth with long-range nuclear capable missiles capable of hitting Moscow and other targets deep inside Russia.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at the alliances between China and Mexico to our south, you look at the alliances between China and many other nations that are very disturbing as their growth of influence, and even the relationship between China and many members of our Congress, our House, our Senate, the governor of California, I believe, who I think is the CCP candidate of choice for 2028. When you look at all that and you think about a new world order led by China and Russia, and then you figure how close they are in our backyard, as the head of, I think, CENTCOM said a few years ago before a congressional committee, they're in our backyard, okay? And then you figure how they are taking some of these mayors of major American cities and really controlling them and influencing them, and governors. We have an existential threat right here on our border. We still don't know where these 100,000 CCP military-age males are that came over the border. Gordon Chang is saying that China wants to fight us right here on our American soil. So you put all that into context with what we saw today and what you're saying, the American people should, frankly, be sitting up tonight and not just taking note of the historic rush toward $3,600 in gold and $42 in silver, but they should be sitting up taking note that America is in decline economically, militarily. We're not building, we're not keeping up, we're not advancing. And yet our enemies are, who want to not just have strong military might, but strong economic might and run the world. You know, the old song, everybody wants to rule the world. I mean, this is a big story that I would venture to guess outside of this network with these experts that we assemble here, no one is really reporting the gravity of what's happening, particularly when you add in the domestic aspect, as I said, of the CCP influencing state officials and federal officials and governors, some of them who they are, I think, backing to run for the White House.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is an existential threat of epic proportions that we've never seen in our history. I mean, during World War II, we faced Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, neither of which had posed any threat to the U.S. outside of the Aleutian Islands and Hawaii and, Midway and other U.S. colonial island possessions. And today, we have multiple enemies, Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, that could likely destroy us within a matter of minutes. And so, we need to try to be working with our foremost national security priority to break up this alliance. There's a path to do it with Russia. We can have better relations with Iran. North Korea and China will always be our enemies, but we can still have friendly, good relations, maybe not friendly, but good relations with them. We can resolve our disputes diplomatically. But the bottom line is we are outnumbered. We have, this alliance consists of, 5 to 6 nuclear powers against 3, 4 if you count Israel. And in terms of actual numbers, Russia alone, according to my calculations, and according to a Ukrainian Ministry of Defense report that was classified and that was leaked a year or two ago, may have over 7 times more operational nuclear weapons than the U.S. does. And now, granted, most of those are non-strategic, and so they don't have the range to hit the U.S. But even their strategic warheads are in excess of 2.5 times more than we do. So if we could have a strategic partnership with them, we could knock the Russian nuclear threat off the grand chessboard with China, and we could try to match China warhead for warhead. I don't even know if that's possible, but at least we could have a pacing threat, which we're not too far behind. With Russia and China together, we're completely overmatched in every single way. Nuclear, super EMP, cyber offensive capabilities, main battle tanks, naval power. Naval power is, obviously one area that we're very close to. Our Navy, of course, is better than the Chinese ship for ship, but they outnumber us about 1.5 times to 1, and 10 to 1 in the South China Sea in the event of a war with Taiwan. So, we need to wake up. It's not just a matter of spending $1 trillion on defense. I wish it was that simple. We need to stop trying to fight all these foreign wars, stop trying to provoke our enemies, confront them. Trump, unfortunately, came into office with really great policies, America First foreign policy in the first few months, and then it's been mostly downhill since. He's kind of adopted kind of a neocon type Bush mentality in starting wars and dealing with their enemies, with the exception of the Putin summit, which was exceptionally good. The problem is he's backtracked very substantially since. Threatening to have a no-fly zone, I guess, over over Ukraine, western and central Ukraine, where U.S. combat aircraft would engage in combat air patrols to support NATO peacekeepers, from France and Britain, following a ceasefire that Russia said could start World War III. And then he's actually in the White House has stated that they're providing 3,550 ERAM missiles, which are long-range missiles capable of hitting Moscow Oblast from Ukraine. So, Trump is escalating the war, and he's not providing any pressure against Ukraine to try to get Zelensky to accept peace with Russia. And at the same time, he's not doing it much constructive with China at all. There's been no, pivot to Asia, I guess, to use an Obama term, in terms of U.S. military forces. In fact, most of our arms have been flowing to Ukraine and Israel, fighting those proxy wars against Russia and Iran. At the same time, our carrier groups are being shipped to the Middle East.
Wow. Let's talk quickly, though, before I get to drones and drone technology, Pete Hegseth, China, what they've developed, because you bring up NATO and that a government of France, as we reported here now a couple times, last 48 hours, is telling their hospitals to get ready and be ready by March of 2026 for casualties, including foreign, which again makes one believe NATO troops. They say you got 6 to 12 months to get ready. So you need to be ready by March of 2026. That's what they said. Doesn't mean that's when the war will start, but they think a war is coming with Russia, and we need you ready by March of 2026. What do you make of this, and do you see it starting that earlier or later in 2026 or into 2027 or at all? And then how could America be dragged into this?
Well, we could be dragged into the war the same way that Britain and France were dragged into World War II when Germany invaded Poland with a foolish military alliance that actually made them less secure. That NATO, of course, is making us less secure. And Trump admitted that. He stated that more than once. He talked about our alliance with Japan being one-sided. I'm not sure he stated that our alliance with NATO is one-sided, but it really kind of is. I mean, does anyone really believe that if we got super EMP'd, took down our power grid, and China was landing 2 million troops on the West Coast, that NATO allies would come to our aid when they're so much smaller and don't even really have a capability against Russia to defend the borders of Eastern Europe? I think the chances are very low. There's any student of history has to realize that we had two regional war, our great power alliance systems, transformed two regional wars in Eastern Europe into unnecessary world wars that cost a total of 110 million people. I estimate that if we stumble into World War III because of our NATO membership and foolish actions by Britain and France sending troops into Ukraine, it could cost 700 million lives. So 7 times more than were lost. Actually, 10 times more than were lost in World War II. 70 million losses in the Second World War. So, if President Trump were wiser, he would follow his gut feeling, which was correct, to pull us out of NATO, as he stated, I think, in 2018 and 19, that telling John Bolton and other of his cabinet members he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. All right, here is Pete Hegseth back in July on drones. Watch and listen to this, guys.
We know why we were put here. We were brought here to rebuild the military, match capabilities to the threats of today. So while our adversaries have produced millions of cheap drones, before us, we were mired in bureaucratic red tape. Not anymore. In June, President Trump issued an executive order unleashing American drone dominance to bolster our drone industry and arm our warfighters, because that's what we're all about. So today, I'm rescinding restrictive policies that stifle production, and this will unleash American manufacturing and the ingenuity of our warfighters by doing 3 key things. First, we're going to bolster the U.S. drone manufacturing base by producing thousands of American-made products, prioritizing Buy American. We'll arm combat units with a variety of low-cost, American-crafted drones, leveraging our world-leading engineers and AI experts. And third, We're going to train as we expect to fight. Senior officers, well, I'll grab this. This is the memo. Senior officers must overcome bureaucratic risk aversion in budgeting, weaponeering, and training. So here's the memo we're signing today, delivered via drones here on the front lawn of the Pentagon.
All right, there you go. Now, that's all good and nice, but take a look at this headline today. China's imposing LY-1 high-power laser weapon unveiled at huge military parade. The LY-1 is reportedly designed primarily for protecting ships against drones and missiles, but appears to also have a role on land. So, China is ready for this drone fight, apparently. I wonder, do we have this kind of technology? Are we showing it off? Are we advancing it? I don't know.
I think the U.S. capabilities for anti-drone, weaponry are much less than China and probably Russia as well. We saw it was late in the Biden administration just last year that we saw drone swarms hovering over key U.S. military bases in the capital region.
Yep.
I think Langley Air Force Base and thereabouts, and there was nothing that was being done about them. Can you imagine, if those were manned aircraft, that were flying over our Air Force Base with potential nuclear capabilities or super EMP capabilities? Would we, just do nothing about them? So I think that Trump's made some changes to that. I think he's likely made it. There were some political restrictions, where the generals weren't even allowed to shoot down the roads if the drones if they wanted to. But also, we didn't have a lot of anti-drone capabilities in the homeland to begin with. The problem is we've shifted so many of our military capabilities abroad, from regional missile defense systems, anti-drones defenses, Patriots. We've really neglected the homeland defense, and that's really what defending the country is all about. And now we have there was a bill in Congress sponsored by Senator Lee and another member of the House, a Republican member of the House, to change the name of the Secretary of Defense to Secretary of War. I don't mind that, but to me, the focus really needs to be on defense, and it shouldn't be on war, because essentially what that incentivizes the Secretary of Defense to do, Pete Hegseth, the future Secretary of War, presumably, is to focus on offensive capabilities, which is, we're really good at conventional offensive power projection, but we're very poor in terms of strategic and homeland defense, which was supposedly the focus of the Hegseth Defense Strategy Memorandum.
Let's see. I know I had another topic I wanted to hit with you real quick, David. Oh, yes. You put it out. 6 German AfD conservative nationalist candidates have been assassinated by left-wing extremists just before key state elections. I'm not hearing too much about that in the mainstream corporate media, are we?
Yeah, it's not just German conservative nationalists. There was, I think, a French conservative nationalist parliamentary that was killed as well. Now, I was being a little bit facetious in terms of exaggerating. I don't have evidence that it's been done by left-wing assassins, but I think we can all come to our own conclusions. It's not just a coincidence that 6 conservative nationalist German politicians were killed right before a German state election. So, especially when it's not even limited to Germany. A mysterious French right-wing politician was killed as well under mysterious circumstances. I mean, this has become something that we see increasingly brazenly with leftists targeting President Trump. Obviously, two far left Ukrainian backing assassins tried to kill President Trump. We heard that the Iranians were after him as well, but there's no evidence that that's the case because there have been no attempts on the Iranian side. So, I think there was a Harvard study a while back that initially concluded that it was conservatives or right-wing folks that had a propensity to violence, and it was very slanted. And then they came out and did a correction and said, No, we're sorry. The results are the exact opposite. It's the leftists that have a very strong propensity of violence as opposed to conservatives, and we've seen that with trans terrorists here at home, domestic terrorists, and we see it abroad as well with these assassinations.
And now, as we're on the air, we're hearing, and I just looked it up. They're saying there's now 7 of the AfD candidates dead. 7.
Yeah. So obviously, this is a coordinated, assassination operation. We can only speculate who it's from, but it could be Muslims, it could be far left politicians, it could even be the deep state in Germany. That's just like the deep state targeted Trump here at home.
If on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say all these, and by the way, how many of those countries that met today with Xi Jinping in China, how many of them are nuclear armed?
So there were 5 official nuclear powers that attended the parade, in terms of national leaders, and then Iran, which I've strongly suspect has nuclear weapons based on their deployment of super EMP satellites over the United States.
Okay, so nuclear satellites over the United States, something we've talked about with Peter Pry before he passed away. So if 10 is where the 10, let's say these folks are at 10, when it comes to their ability, their preparedness, their precision. If they're at a 10, what do you think America's at? 1 to 10, 10 being the best, what are we at?
Well, I mean, you have to be specific in terms of military.
As far as our defenses, our readiness, our survivability in terms of preparedness and equipment to deal with attacks from these countries, both cyber, missiles, drones, all the above. If we go to World War III and you're just wargaming it, how confident are you about our ability to respond and defend ourselves?
The U.S. currently, its official policy that the U.S. will not defend the U.S. homeland against Russian or Chinese nuclear missiles. We only are allowed to defend against North Korean nuclear missiles. We have no defense against super EMP weapons. We have limited defenses against enemy cyber offensive capabilities, but really very limited. They could take us down likely with cyber alone. They could take down our grid. China has, I think, 11% of our transformers in the grid are Chinese built, 493, according to the latest estimate by Tommy Waller, who's the CEO of the Center for Security Policy, who I've been working with in the past. So in terms of our readiness, our capabilities to defend against some kind of existential nuclear, super EMP, or cyber threat to the U.S., we would be guaranteed to lose a nuclear war with Russia and China. And they could likely defeat us again with just cyber attacks and the 100,000 PLA troops here in the U.S. That we know are here that are deployed presumably on Chinese farmlands located near 17 key U.S. military bases. And we talk about this a lot. They could drop a bunch of containers from Chinese container ships and use Club Ks on diesel trucks, drive them right within 50 to 200 miles of D.C. and take out the Pentagon and D.C., potentially taking out all 3 nuclear footballs. And according to Colonel Rob Maness, who's one of our premier nuclear experts, certainly on the nuclear football, for which he wrote the handbook, it would take several days at least to reestablish nuclear launch control, during which Russia, China, North Korea could take out every nuclear target we have.
All right. Well, I think we should be focusing on these things, obviously, but Congress and so many others are not even talking about this. I mean, they aren't, are they?
They're not. No, they operate under the illusion that the U.S. is the world's premier, military power, the strongest nuclear power. It's just not true. I'm not sure it ever was true. Certainly, we were by far the strongest economic power. China's now overmatched us. We're now the second largest manufacturing power. Their defense industrial base could be 5 to 6 times larger than ours. We just don't build things. We don't build weapons anymore. We have to use Chinese rare earths and Chinese components, even Chinese motherboards in our weapon systems that they could potentially hack in the event of war and either turn off our weapons and missiles and even aircraft, or even employ them against us, according to former DHS official that I've spoken with.
So instead of concentrating on all these data centers, not to mention what it's doing for water and power and draining on us, instead of concentrating on all these data centers, we should be concentrating on building facilities to manufacture weapons, and we should be working on the technology that's available to harden the grid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, it's at this rate, it's almost too late. I think World War III is all but guaranteed by 2027, unless we have, President Trump decide to make a deal with China over Taiwan, or simply state that we will not defend Taiwan militarily. So really, what is most imperative at this point is to show strength by a diplomatic offensive with Russia and China to resolve our areas of conflict over Ukraine and Taiwan. And once we do that, we bought ourselves enough time to do everything you just stated. Rebuild our nuclear missile arsenal 2 to 3 times larger. Harden the entire grid, ideally the entire all of our critical infrastructure against super EMP attack and cyber attack, and then deploy a space-based missile defense system. And then once we have those capabilities in place, then we can consider trying to be a bully again and push them around. But right now, you don't. When you live in a glass house, you don't want to be throwing stones against your enemies.
Wow. David Pyne, dpyne.substack.com, dpyne.substack.com. David, as always, thank you for your excellent analysis and warnings, by the way.
Thanks, Brandon. Great to be with you again.
You too, my friend. And folks, if you still want to get prepared, I have about 3 years supply of freeze-dried food for my family, for the guys in the control room, to barter with. Folks, I would not be fooling around here. I know everybody thinks, oh, it's all great. America's back. I mean, I'm happy for the successes we're having, but you should be putting away. You should be stocking up and pray you never need it. You saw what happened under COVID. Folks, we still have all kinds of resources, freeze-dried food, this real food. Real food. It's just freeze-dried. It's real food. We have gluten-free, vegetable, fruit, full meals. We have made it. We've eaten it. It's excellent. We've put it in front of people. They've eaten it, didn't even know it was freeze-dried food until after they ate it. We told them it's freeze-dried. They couldn't believe it. We have it available, worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. We've warned people for years about what's going on economically. We've told them about what's going to happen to the dollar, where gold was going as a hedge. Now gold's headed toward $3,600 tonight, an ounce. Silver toward $42 an ounce. And yet people now are calling up Wes and Mike at Swiss, and I'm glad they're doing something now, but where were they before? Why were they not doing something before? And the same thing, I'm afraid, is going to happen when it comes to people preparing for a problem within our own country. Cyber hacking, power grid, one of the three or all three of the grids in the country going down due to these data centers, which is a possibility, real possibility. Terrorist attacks in the country. World War III. Then you got natural disaster. Then you got solar flares. It's very amazing to me, maybe it's human nature, that people always wait until it's on top of them to respond. Well, we'll get gold now at nearly $3,600 an ounce. Well, better than not getting it at all, probably, when it's going to go to 7,000, I think, or more. But I guess it's human nature to wait and then panic and say, I need it now, I need it now. Well, don't do that. Learn from these trends we've been telling you about. Because I think something is coming. If God doesn't take us out of here, I think we have multiple things on the table that can occur that are going to require you to be self-sufficient. So why you're not going to worldviewstore.com, some of you, and stocking up, I don't know. Some of you have, by the way. But if you want to get freeze-dried food, 3 months, 6 months, a year, we have solar stuff. We have all kinds of things. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. We also have the worldviewtalk.com. Worldview Talk, we can get your own satellite phone should the cell towers go down. We have the solar generators. I have a satellite phone, obviously. I have one of the solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400. All of these things are excellent. At worldviewtalk.com, you can use that number, 1-866-738-3224, 1-866-738-3224, worldviewtalk.com. So I would say, folks, prepare and pray. I'm not suggesting anything to you that I haven't done. I have the solar generator. I have the satellite phone. I have about 3 years worth of freeze-dried food. I have all kinds of things. I've been a prepper, frankly, since about 2008, maybe even sooner, probably 2007. So it's not a joke, and I'm constantly adding to it and rotating things in and out. So take these things seriously and use what's happening in the economic area and the gold area to show that we have a good track record of telling you where trends are going. And we're telling you now where the trends are going. And you need to prepare. If the hospitals in France are being told to prepare for war, don't you think we should pay attention to that? If China is preparing for war, and they're openly telling you they're preparing for war with China, shouldn't we believe them? If many experts like Usama Dakdok, born and raised in Egypt, an expert on Islam, speaks Arabic fluently, told us today that an attack is coming to America that's going to be far, far worse than 9/11, why would we not take these people seriously? Whether it's our enemies or our friends that are trying to warn us because of their area of expertise. Prepare and then pray. But there's going to be a lot of people that could have prepared, and they just chose to keep being apathetic and passive. Some folks are on fixed income, and you can only do so much. And that's why for years I've said, well, buy a little bit. Buy a little bit every month. Buy a little bit every quarter. Whatever you can afford, and build it up. Because just like what we've seen with gold, people wait, and then the phones ring off the hook. A lot of folks are going to do this when it comes to their own personal preparedness. You can't eat gold and silver. As great as it is as a hedge against inflation, you can't eat it. So I'd suggest you get ready. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. This would also be a great time to show up at our national conference, coming up Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. And listen to Gordon Chang, and listen to Chris Martenson, and so many of these experts telling you what is happening, what the trends are, and how to prepare. If you want to understand the times, you should show up. I mean, you ought to just go to worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com, and when you get there, look for the conference link and look at all the topics we're going to be covering and think, do you not want to know the answer to these questions? So come join us October 3rd, Friday night, Saturday the 4th, the optional banquet on the 2nd, worldviewstore.com. If you have a membership to the vault at any level, we'll let you stream it. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.